Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Marie Johnson had always carried herself with a natural grace that commanded attention without even trying. At 38, she carried the confidence of a woman who had forged her own path in an often unwelcoming world. A talented and renowned interior designer in the Denver area, she had a rare ability to transform spaces into havens of peace, combining modernity and warmth. Her professionalism and high standards earned her the respect of her clients, but never quite the vociferous admiration she deserved. This Saturday morning, she had donned a carefully chosen, understated outfit, chic but not extravagant. Fitted beige pants, a slightly fitted white shirt, and a navy jacket. Her hair neatly pulled back, she had that sweet, almost reassuring smile that nevertheless betrayed an iron determination. She walked alongside Marcus, her husband, with whom she shared a rare bond. Marcus Johnson, a renowned civil rights lawyer, was a man of quiet but powerful charisma. For years, he had waged tenacious battles against the systemic discrimination that plagued American society. Through his connections, he had secured a rare and coveted invitation to visit Aspen's most exclusive golf club, a symbol of power and privilege where few people of color had ever set foot. For Marcus and Marie, this getaway was meant to be a parenthesis, a sort of temporary exile from the judgments of everyday life, an opportunity to relax together in a setting of lush greenery and apparent calm. The morning sun illuminated the landscape, making the immaculately manicured lawns, artificial lakes, and wooded hills sparkle in the distance. They walked slowly onto the green, savoring the fresh air, the almost unreal beauty of the place. Marie took the time to look around her, observing the details. The golf carts with their shiny bodies, the players in impeccable attire, the servants who moved discreetly to cater to the members' every whim. It was a world she knew existed, but into which she had rarely been invited. Everything seemed peaceful, almost idyllic, until a group of club members slowly approached. These men, all white and wearing designer suits or polo shirts, exuded an aura of superiority mixed with palpable hostility. Their gazes fixed on Marie and Marcus with a coldness that made the air around them shiver. Richard Simmons, a stout man whose red face betrayed a life of comfort and abuse of power, spoke in a hoarse, contemptuous voice. "What is she doing here?" The other members of the group burst out laughing, and soon several of them began throwing golf balls in their direction. At first, the projectiles ricocheted off the ground, like a veiled threat, but soon the violence escalated. A ball struck Marie hard in the shoulder, making her stagger. The shock was brutal, and the pain searing. But what hurt Marie even more were the stares from the other club members. Not one lifted a finger to reprimand her. On the contrary, many looked away, refusing to confront the scene, while some smiled silently, complicit in this humiliation. Marie gritted her teeth, a silent rage boiling inside her. She avoided responding to the provocation, knowing that to give in to anger on this level would be to lower herself to the level of these men. Yet every beat of her heart hammered the will not to be crushed by this injustice. Marcus, standing beside Marie, felt his blood boil as the golf balls flew toward them, violent and mocking. His heart was pounding, but he controlled his breathing, aware that blind anger could make the situation worse. Yet when he saw the ball violently strike Marie's shoulder, the shock of pain mixed with the humiliation inflicted on his wife made a dull rage rise within him, an anger that nothing could appease. His face hardened, his features tightened, and his black eyes became hard, shining with indignation and determination. He moved gently away from Marie, setting her at a distance, and approached with firm steps towards the group of men, all arrogant smiles and contemptuous looks. His voice rang out, cold and calm, but sharp as a blade. "What you're doing is unacceptable. You hit my wife with a golf ball. I advise you to leave before I lose my patience." A heavy silence fell for a moment. Then Richard Simmons burst into a deep, contemptuous laugh, like a lion teasing its wounded prey. He took a step toward Marcus, his rounded belly thrust forward, his red face contorted with laughter. "And who's going to stop you, Johnson? You and your wife are nothing here. This club isn't for you." The words resonated like a whiplash, chilling the air. The crowd around him seemed to hold their breath, some witnesses stealing furtive glances at Marcus, but no one moved to intervene. Marcus didn't respond immediately. He had learned not to be carried away by empty provocations. His gaze swept the area, searching for witnesses, for invisible allies. Then he calmly took out his phone, capturing several photos and videos of the scene, immortalizing the humiliation, the faces, and the gestures of his attackers. He then called club security, his voice firm and authoritative, demanding immediate intervention. A few minutes later, 2 uniformed officers appeared, walking slowly toward the group. But upon their arrival, their attitude changed. Hesitant, almost embarrassed, they regarded the wealthy members with palpable deference, as if afraid of aggravating the situation. The security chief glanced briefly at Marcus and Marie, then turned to Richard and his accomplices with a condescending pout. "Gentlemen, we just ask you to remain calm." One of the men sneered and replied arrogantly, "No problem." Marcus understood at that moment that local justice, even in a place supposed to represent excellence, was skewed. That wealth and status could drown out the truth. With cold determination, he decided to mobilize his resources, calling on his network of lawyers, journalists, and activists. He knew this battle would be long and arduous, but he was prepared to do anything to defend his wife's dignity. Back home, in the hushed calm of their house, Marcus and Marie set to work. They drafted a formal complaint, detailing every moment of the incident. Marcus contacted his colleagues, civil rights lawyers, and independent journalists known for their integrity. Marie, although physically affected by the pain in her shoulder, also had to face another, more subtle wound: the shame that some people around her, or in wider circles, sought to impose on her. As if this aggression were a fault, as if her mere presence in this place of privilege justified the violence she had suffered. But Mary, with impressive inner strength, refused to be crushed. One evening, when they were alone, she took Marcus's hand, her gaze determined and her voice trembling but clear. "I will never let this kind of hatred decide my place in this world. Not today, not ever." In the following days, their efforts bore fruit. Several articles began to appear in the local and regional press, denouncing the incident, revealing the existence of latent but powerful racism in these supposedly exemplary private clubs. Social media ignited, dividing opinions, but above all shedding light on an often hidden reality. With this burgeoning support, Marcus organized a press conference where he spoke calmly but firmly. He publicly denounced not only the attackers, but also the club's complicit silence, the complacency of security, and the social divide that the venue embodied. He spoke of justice, equality, and trampled dignity, and called for radical change. The battle was only just beginning, but Marcus and Marie had laid the first stone in a fight that went far beyond them. Under mounting pressure from the media, social media, and public opinion, the Aspen Golf Club was forced to react. The initially awkward silence, then the clumsy attempt to downplay the incident, were swept away by an outpouring of outrage. The images, the testimonies gathered by journalists, and Marcus's firm voice at the press conference had brought to light a long-hidden reality, an elite bastion, closed to some, where racism was manifest in broad daylight. At an emergency meeting called by the board of directors, the club members voted to immediately suspend Richard Simmons and his accomplices. An internal investigation was launched, ostensibly to clarify the facts, but also to protect the club's image. However, Marcus knew these gestures were not enough. He decided to take it further. Drawing on his legal expertise and network, he launched a lawsuit against the club for racial discrimination and harassment. He didn't just want to obtain compensation for Marie. He wanted this fight to change the rules, to break down the invisible walls that excluded so many people simply because of their skin color. The trial quickly attracted national attention. Media, civil rights groups, intellectuals, and engaged citizens saw the case as a symbol, a rare opportunity to shine a light on hidden discrimination in elite spaces. The courtroom was the scene of an intense legal battle, but also of a passionate public debate about social injustice. For several months, Marcus and his team gathered testimonies, evidence, and expert opinions. Marie, for her part, actively participated in the fight, giving interviews with dignity, sharing her experience to break the silence that often surrounds this violence. On the day of the verdict, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The judges delivered a clear and historic verdict. The club was responsible not only for tolerating racist behavior, but also for a discriminatory institutional environment. The court ordered the club to pay Marie financial compensation, commensurate with the physical, mental, and social suffering she had endured. But beyond money, the court imposed deep and concrete measures on the club: the implementation of mandatory diversity awareness programs, anti-discrimination training for all members and staff, as well as genuinely opening access to previously excluded populations. This victory resonated far beyond Aspen. Marcus and Marie became iconic figures in the fight against systemic racism in places of power and privilege. They were invited to speak at conferences, support other victims, and participate in national debates. One evening, in the soothing calm of their living room, as the battle seemed to be entering a new phase, Marie looked at Marcus with tenderness mixed with pride. "We did more than defend our dignity, Marcus," she said softly. "We opened a door, a real one, for many others." Marcus took her hand with sincere intensity. "And we will continue, Marie, as long as it is necessary, because this fight is bigger than us.